CTBK is more than just a full-service accounting firm. They are one team with an innovative approach to accounting and rise to each new challenge with collaborative problem-solving skills. CTBK goes above and beyond by lending helping hands in the Buffalo and Niagara community through volunteer work and donations, and is partnered up with Victory Sports for 2020 and 2021 to keep kids in the community active. The professionals at CTBK are determined to help individuals and businesses succeed. Whether a large corporation, a small business, or somewhere in between, call CTBK at 716-630-2400. Again, 716-630-2400, and see what CTBK's one-team approach can do for you.
Welcome to another edition of Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and Business Consultants. We're going to see if my microphone's working this time. Tim Graham from The Athletic here, along with Jonah Bronstein of the New Bronstein Times. And you can see his smiling face there. It's John Vogl of The Athletic. He covers the Buffalo Sabres. And wanted to have John on for two reasons. Number one, Sabres are fun to watch lately. Number two, John just posted his periodic Sabres fan survey results, which always pretty cool to take a look and see what the fans are thinking and where they might be surprising you, where we might be misreading the pulse. I have to say, John, they seem pretty realistic in terms, and we'll get into some of the, some of the 23 questions, but thanks for joining the show.
Always a pleasure to see both of you guys.
You're wearing your red for Dyngus Day, and we are scheduling this so you can get out to the festivities. So can you, speaking of festivities, let's set the table. Jonah Bronstein's 40th birthday today. It's Dyngus Day. Everybody's got some sort of celebration to do. John's getting ready to go out for Dyngus Day. Jonah's got a big wrestling match he's going to go watch tonight at the arena. John, what are your Dyngus Day? What's the roadmap of how John Vogl tackles Dyngus Day?
Just get the beer ready, and if it's a warm day, obviously warm is much better because the parade is outside. Just fill up a cooler, sit outside on the sidewalk, and it's one of the few times in Buffalo of the year where you can just have open containers all day long and no one gives a F. So you just sit
you
there.
Can say whatever you want on this podcast.
Hi, no one gives a fuck if you're drinking beer out in the street then. So you just go out there, have some sodas. Today I'm just going to swing by, get some of the Broadway Market beer and wine samples and listen to some music, and then I'll probably be home once the rain starts because I'm old and don't like it when it's 40 and rainy.
No squirt guns or pussy willows or any of that behavior for you?
No, not for me. It's funny. The one of my most memorable Dyngus Day was in Pittsburgh. The Sabres were playing there, and it was me and Kevin Snow, who worked for the Sabres at the time. And that's the only time I think I've ever really gotten hit or squirted. I can't remember which one you're supposed to, but yeah, we found a little Polish bar in Pittsburgh and had a good time. And then thinking back, the Sabres actually ended up signing someone or making a trade that day. And Kevin Snow and I had to join I probably shouldn't say this out loud for Kevin's purposes, but too late. I already started the story. So we did the phone conference after having a few sodas in us. So most of it was just listening and writing rather than chiming in on what Darcy had to say, Darcy Regier. But anyway, that's one of the memorable Dyngus Days.
What have you found in your travels about Dyngus Day? I grew up in Cleveland and had a lot of family lived in Parma, which is essentially Cleveland's Cheektowaga. And my brother was actually the superintendent of Parma schools for a period, and nobody there knows anything about it.
Yeah,
Cleveland's not that far away.
Right. We were surprised to find anywhere in Pittsburgh. I thought it was basically just a Buffalo thing. I'm not even Polish, so all I know about it is it's a good chance to go outside and drink. But we were surprised. We found a place in Pittsburgh. It was pretty full and it was a good day. But yeah, I don't think that's too big outside of our town anyway.
You're wearing red. However, it's not just any red sweatshirt. What's up with this red? If you can explain to the folks who are listening / watching.
UNLV. I graduated from high school in 1991, showing my age. But my junior and senior year, I was big into college basketball and basketball in general. And the Runnin' Rebels were it. Favorite team I've ever watched. Just everything I could name, everybody from Travis Bice and H. Waldman up to obviously the big guys, Larry Johnson and Stacey Augman. And it was just such a good time, those 2 years. So yeah, I like to think back and have fun with that.
H. Waldman, whose name was not H period. His name was actually H.
Yep.
The letter H. That was his entire first name. I wonder if that causes problems at like TSA, or, when you're checking into a hotel or something like that. Do they maybe not accept it?
That's a good question.
You can't get on a plane because you don't have enough letters in your first name.
Well, no, you got an abbreviation and they're going to say, well, no, we need to have your full name on this ticket. What's your full name? Your ticket, everything has to match. And so, I'm guessing you probably get your passport checked to see if it's legitimate every now and then, like McLovin. It just said McLovin, you're going to get examined a little bit.
Hawaiian organ donor.
Right.
You can't just say you're TGAF on the plane and think they know what that means. You got to spell it all out.
Yes, usually. TGAF has a lot of power to it, though. A lot of TGAF vibes. I mean, people are stopping me. I mean, they're all saying it. Everybody's saying it. John, your survey, 23 questions. Rather than just go down one by one, what were the ones that jumped out to you that maybe were a surprise or validated your faith in humanity?
I don't know if I go that far with anything, but there was a few that I was interested to see. When will the Sabres make the playoffs? Was one that I was really interested in, because obviously people are feeling good, as they should be at the moment. It looks like they're finally turning a corner here. So I knew people would be optimistic, and sure enough, 8 out of 10 picked a 5 or a 4 out of 5 for being optimistic. But when will the Sabres make the playoffs? The majority of people voted 2023 and 24 as the next time. So they're not expecting the playoffs next year, which is probably a good idea. I mean, there's still some growing to do for this team. Tampa Bay, Toronto, Florida, I don't see them being better than them next year still. But 2 years, I think, is the correct timeline. And it was interesting to see that the fans pretty much agreed on that, because as optimistic as they were, they stayed grounded in when this team's going to make the playoffs again.
Yeah, that was the one that stood out to me most of all. 66.5% said not next season. I mean, just to kind of put it into, for some context, or to zoom out a little bit. That's a lot that I think, especially with you asking at a time when everything is in stark contrast to the misery that Sabres fans have experienced. For the past decade, but also especially just as recently as last year. The fact that the season ticket base is as low as it is, there's only been one sellout so far, and it had to be a special night to pull that off. But the excitement in watching games again is there, and people are talking about the Sabres. That is something that I hear quite a bit about. It used to just be nothing but Bills, but now people want to watch the Sabres. And I thought that the answer to that question would be inflated just because people are a little giddy about what they're seeing.
Yeah, I agree. That's why that was the first one that came to mind, because and then I was also interested to see how many people were thinking of buying ticket packages next year, either full or partial. And that's the one thing that's continued. As much as people are talking about the Sabres, as much as they're optimistic about the Sabres, people just aren't buying tickets yet. Anyway, Saturday night was just another example. The place was a third full on a Saturday night. There wasn't much else going on. I know it's a holiday weekend and some people might be in Florida and whatnot, but a lot of people have visitors too. So, hey, let's go to the Sabres game. They're playing well, have fun. No, didn't work. Only a third of the building was full. And as a reporter, that's not great. You want to be part of an event, and nothing against the crowd that was there. They were into it. That's the one thing this season. The 8,000 people or so who show up are into it. They're having a good time. It's just, you'd rather be in a place with 19,000 than 8,000. So it's a little disappointing, but hey, they're I don't know what they're going to have to do to sell tickets. I think that's the big thing that Sabres have to figure out this summer is how to translate optimism and excitement into ticket sales.
Question number 13. I also like the response to that because it showed restraint. Question 13, should the Sabres make a splash in free agency? 69% said no. And usually I think, well, I don't want to say usually, but my thinking would be that in an anonymous online poll, you have to be thinking, shit, it's not my money or whatever. Like, hell yeah, let's do something fun. But there was some restraint shown by the fans who voted.
Yeah, for sure. And it's even more interesting when you consider the Sabres are rock bottom payroll. I mean, it's not like they're up against the cap where spending is gonna hurt them. I mean, they had to add on an injured player with a $6 million salary just to get to the floor. So, I mean, they have $22 million to spend, and people don't want them to do it this summer because I think they realize they're more than one or two pieces away. They saw them spend freely a decade ago, and obviously it didn't work. So I think they're going to wait. The fans are okay with seeing this team wait until Jack Quinn's got a couple of years under his belt, JJ Peterka. And then after that, then you go and strike and find that one or two pieces that can put them over the edge. So that's interesting. That was interesting to see.
I'm wondering if I could sidetrack here a little bit, how these things kind of tie in together. Because I think it was about 3,000 respondents on your survey on The Athletic, and probably they're all people that subscribe to The Athletic, right? Or I would assume, right? Athletic readers. I'm just wondering if, if that's reflective of the whole fan base, that they're willing to wait a year for the team to contend for the playoffs and make a splash in free agency. And that if something like that needs to happen in order to sell tickets, do they need a free agent signing that helps them sell tickets? Or do they need the belief that we're making a run for the playoffs or even something more this year to get the fans back? Or does that 3,000 reflect the whole 30, 40, 50,000 potential ticket buying fan base?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I think the people who fill these out are the diehard fans, just because that's only a fraction of our Sabres subscriber base. And that happens every time. It's really only a fraction of our base, but it's all these polls usually get around 3,000. So I think it's the real diehards who want their voice heard. And I think that's kind of the people who would be in the ticket buying area. So I'm sure that doesn't speak to everyone out there, but I think it is the fans who really care about this team. And when 71% of them say, no, I'm not going to bother to get a season ticket package of any sort, I think that does say something, but we'll see.
It's like what they're saying is we're happy with another season like this one.
Yeah.
At least one more.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
I don't know if this is how accurate this is, but it seems to make sense, is that if you are the type of person who's going to pay for your Sabres coverage a little extra than just get it for free, you're probably the type of person who is that dedicated of a fan that you need your Sabres coverage more so than I'm just going to get by, scrolling through Twitter or, checking out NHL.com or watching, ESPN or whatever, which I guess you can say this year, you couldn't say in years past. You can't actually turn on and see a show every now and then on ESPN that takes a look at the world of hockey. But yeah, if you're subscribing for your news, then I think that makes you a more discerning fan. I don't know. Maybe not. That's just a thought.
Well, yeah, no, I guess, and maybe there's no answer to this question, but I wanted to hear what John thought. Is there another 3,000 or whatever? Is there a different demographic of Sabres, potential Sabres fans or Buffalo sports fans that would have a different kind of take about what they want and need from this team in order to get back in the building and bring back that energy? The energy is there, but more volume of people and more butts in the seats, if you will.
Yeah.
It seems that an energy is being captured, and you can go back to Jack Eichel's return with the Vegas Golden Knights. And that carried over a few weeks later with the Rick Jeanneret night. And then the game after that, John, help my memory. Wasn't there a home game shortly after that in which there was some excitement in the building, but they didn't win, but at least there was a crowd?
Well, it wasn't the next
or a kids day or something.
There was a kids day after that, but the game right after Rick Jeanneret night was a downer, just because you're coming off this big high, and it was against Florida, I believe, the next one, and it was just back to the old stale arena. So there wasn't the next one, but there have been some good nights in there. Yeah.
That was, I think, the third biggest crowd of the year to date. So, and maybe it was a coincidence. It was a Sunday, it was Kids Day, but it seemed like maybe the buzz from Friday night brought a few more people in the door that day. The Sabres got beat by however many goals, and maybe that ruined that. But
yeah, Florida's good. Florida's good. But it's funny. I mean, we talk about, and there is no doubt. I mean, it does seem like there's been a little bit of an uptick. I mean, at least now they're announcing 11,000 ticket sales instead of 9,000 ticket sales. But a reminder, A, that's not actual attendance, but also 11,000 ticket sales from 1971 to 2002 and 2004 to 2020. That would be the worst crowd of the year. I mean, as good as it seems in this climate, for 50 years of this franchise, that would be awful. That would be the worst crowd of the season without a doubt, unless there was a snowstorm, obviously. But it's so they have a long way to go. I mean,
2002, 2003, that was the bankruptcy time. That was post Dominic Hasek, pre Briere Drury kicking in, all those young players arriving. It was, Stu Barnes is your best player on a nightly basis. Curtis Brown in a starring role. It was not great. But I do recall those crowds as I covered that team, I want to say they were 12, 13, and occasionally you'd get a 9. And that was when you really felt like you were watching minor league hockey, or that you were, you were not in an NHL building anymore when there were 9,000 people there. And that's your norm. That's what you guys have gotten used to. Both of you, covering and going to the arena every night. I guess it helps, at least when it comes time to go home. You don't have to worry about fighting through traffic. I don't know. I mean, you got to sit and write anyway, if you feel like it.
Well, there was one game I just did a quick briefs about it rather than a full story. And yeah, they were still cleaning up in the hallways and everything. And yeah, there was only a few cars left, and it was easy to get out. Yeah.
Who should be the next captain next year? That was one of the questions in John Vogel's 23 question poll. And Alex Tuck at 70%, Kyle Oposo at 23%. But it seems, based on what we're hearing from Don Granato lately, I don't want to say, I mean, it's not like it's a campaign, but Don Granato really does go out of his way to make sure he lets people know how much he loves Kyle Oposo. And I don't know. I think that might be your next captain next year, even though everybody loves the Alex Tuck storyline and he grew up a Sabres fan and he knows what it means and all that stuff. But I'd also like to say that Kyle Okposo has gone through the suffering, the idea that he's actually got the scars of being a Sabre through such a horseshit period in the organization's existence, and still has all the respect of his coaches and his teammates and the fans. Might say more than just because Alex Tuck used to be a Sabres fan. But I know that folks enjoy that, and because it's so rare that it's like, oh my God, this guy wants to be here. But obviously so does Kyle Okposo. What were your thoughts on the captain, on the captain discussion? Because it seems to be, for a long time, a one-horse race.
Yeah. First, while you're talking about Kyle and Don, I was just looking up the quote from the game Saturday night. Don Granato said, "He is without question our biggest leader. There is no doubt he has an immense presence in everything we do." So yes, Don Granato is all in on Kyle Okposo, as you said. The captaincy question is an interesting one in the fact of, are they going all in the future, or are they still a little bit in the present? Because Kyle Okposo has one more year on his contract. So if you give him the captaincy, then you might have to give someone else the captaincy in 2024, because he's might not resign, he might leave, he might retire. Who knows? He'll be 35.
Isn't he building a house here though?
He's settling down.
Time?
I mean, he's settling down. He's not going anywhere. It's just a question of, at 35, will he want to keep playing? I mean, obviously we all know he's gone through a lot, and now that he's proven himself, how much more does he? I don't know. We'll see. We'll get to that bridge in a couple of years, I guess. But
it's a situation where it seems like maybe the answer would be closer to, hell yeah, I want to play a few more years. If you were to ask him today, as opposed to 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Because he's had a pretty good year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this resurgence has been one of the biggest stories, aside from Tage Thompson and Jeff Skinner, but there's a few stories. But anyway, I think that is the question. If they think Kyle's going to be here only one more year, do they still give him the captaincy, or are they ready? Because Alex Tuck is signed for, what is it, 4 or 5 more years. And then if you give him the C, you're starting a new era and staying with that era for a while. So I think that might go into what they do with the captaincy. The one thing that's interesting with Tuck, I'm not sure if he's worn an A yet. It's possible he's had the A on his jersey. The 2 A's all the time are Gergensons and Okposo. The other night, Dahlin had it on. Dahlin's been wearing the A quite a bit. I'm not sure if Tuck's worn it yet. So that, I don't know if that says anything about what the organization thinks going forward with the C, but Dahlin might be in the mix, and obviously Kyle. So we'll see.
Your survey also reveals a little bit more about the popularity of Don Granato. 93% on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. 93% of your respondents gave him a 4 or a 5 in terms of the job that he's been doing. This question came up at the bar a couple of nights ago, and I'd like your thoughts on it. In fact, Joan, I don't know if you're in on this conversation, so obviously join in, but what if, how would things be different if Jack Eichel got to play for Don Granato? And we didn't have that period of Ralph Kruger just totally destroying all joy out of watching hockey.
It's amazing to me whenever Ralph gets brought up. I don't think any outsider, I don't think any hockey person would disagree that he was awful coach. Just an awful coach. And it's still mind-boggling to me that these guys like him and even love him still. I mean, as a person, you won't find anyone in that lock. Well, maybe Jeff Skinner, but some other guys, there's other guys that say, hey, he's still a great guy. I liked him. And it's amazing to me that he could ruin their careers for 2 years and people would still like him. I mean, some people have ruined my career for 2 years and I don't like them anymore. So I don't know how the players still give Ralph kudos, but it would have been fun last year to have Don Granato at the start. I mean, they had some offensive weapons with Eichel and Taylor Hall, and the way Don Granato embraces offense compared to the way Kruger insisted on defensive principles, I think it would have been fun to watch. I don't even know where to go with whether it would have made a difference though, because would he have still hurt his neck? Would the Sabres have still?
Right.
But yeah, but anyway, it would have been more fun to watch those guys with Don than with Ralph for sure.
Because that leads me to the, did you have something, Joan? I'm sorry.
No, John actually pretty much said what I would have thought, but that, Jack Eichel seemed like he got along well and responded to that first season with Ralph Kruger. That went better than his relationship, it seems, with Dan Bylsma or Phil Housley, and some of the rumblings that, Jack might not have wanted them to come back as coaches. And I don't think we heard that with Ralph Kruger, and Jack was out of the lineup by the time, it seemed like the end was near with Ralph Kruger. But, and as you said, I think it would have been more interesting if Jack Eichel didn't get hurt and he had to play under Don Granato and with this team with the different mix and different vibes early this season. And if he would have, responded well to that and said, I don't want to get traded and I do want to stick around. But also, the Sabres were ready to trade Jack Eichel, I think, in many ways too. That era had to end for this new era to start, I think.
If you were able to inject Rasmus Dahlin with some truth serum, what do you think his opinion of Ralph Kruger would be? He actually got asked about him not long ago, and he's one of the guys who continued to say he liked him. I mean, it's intriguing. I think he seems like a pretty honest cat. He doesn't say a lot, but he's not. I don't think. I think he still at times feels around from Swedish to English. So there's a lot of those guys who are working on the language that don't know how to bullshit yet, because it's hard to fib in your second language if you don't know the nuance of it. Yeah. So I think they liked him. I think he also realizes that, at least I hope he realizes, that his career would not be going in the trajectory it's going if Ralph were still here. Yeah. And I think that the Jack Eichel trade factors into the response to the same question about Kevin Adams. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 78% of respondents say that they like the job that Kevin Adams is doing. They gave him a 4 or a 5, I should say, 78%, a 4 or a 5 on that scale. However, doesn't Tage Thompson's evolution this year change the discussion on Jason Botterill? And how much should it?
That's a good question, because was Tage the centerpiece of the deal? It depends on who you asked for it or talked to at the time. Like, Tage was probably their third best prospect at the time. There was a couple other guys that people said, oh, why didn't we get this guy? Why didn't the Sabres get that guy instead of Tage Thompson? Now, if Jason Botterill wanted Tage Thompson and insisted on, hey, include Tage Thompson in this deal, then yes, he deserves a lot more credit than he should get for seeing that. If it was a case of the Blues said no when Botterill asked for this guy, no for that guy, and then they just threw in Thompson, then I don't know how much credit he gets. But that group of the Botterill era, they drafted well, and in this case, the trade looks a lot better than it did at the time. That's for sure.
John, what's your sense on the Sabres heading into next year? We know what the fans think. They are not expecting the playoffs next season, but you're feeling it. You're there every day. You've covered all the games. I guess just what's your gut telling you? What's just your hunch on where this team is about turning a corner? Are they clear? Or is this smoke and mirrors? I mean, there's all kinds of ways that this can go. There's no guarantees based on what we've seen, and the fans seem to be taking it in that way. But you're there. What do you think?
Yeah, I've been on record multiple times saying next year's they're going to contend for a playoff spot, but I don't think next year is the playoff year. I mean, just for the part of the reasons I laid out earlier, they won't be better than Florida. They won't be better than Toronto. They won't be better than Tampa Bay. And there's only 4 spots in most years. There's only 4 spots per division.
What are we talking about? 20, 25 points they have to make up?
Well, I'm looking at them now. Florida has 114. Toronto's got 106. Tampa's got 100. Boston's got 97. The Sabres have 69. So they're still 30 points back of a playoff spot. And then plus you've got Detroit and Ottawa right in the mix with the Sabres. So they're in the same division. They're both also improving a little bit. So I don't think there will be 3 or 4 100-point teams in the division next year because it won't be as top heavy. But I don't think the Sabres are quite yet ready to make the leap towards the top, but they should be. Games that in March will matter, which is what people wanted for a long time. And I think they will next year.
What if, this is just kind of a hot take here, but what if 10 teams make the playoffs next year and there's a play-in tournament? Sabres, if that was the case now, they'd only be, I think, 7 points out of being that 10th team if they did the NBA model.
Yeah, should the NHL do that? I love the idea because it's you're concocting it, yes, but you're concocting hockey at its purest. You know, the NBA, those play-in games, yes, it's winner get in or you know how it is. The way that little mini bracket works. But you're essentially creating a game 7 situation out of nowhere. Go ahead. You're not going to make it. You wouldn't have made it anyway. So here you go. One last game.
Be fun to watch. I mean, it's
and 3-on-3 the entire way.
Right.
No, I'm kidding about it.
I know. It's almost hard. Like, obviously we remember what the playoffs were like, especially the 05-06 year. But it's almost, now that you're sitting here talking about it, I'm having a hard time really remembering just how amazing it feels to be in a playoff game, in a playoff atmosphere. So yes, if they were to expand that atmosphere and get more teams and more fan bases to enjoy it, there should be nothing wrong with that, I would think. Yeah.
Would Sabres fans appreciate that or want that? Because I think there were at times during the Bills drought and there was discussions about the NFL expanding the playoffs as they have done since, and fans would say we don't want the Bills to make the playoffs as the 3rd wild card or the 7th seed. There was almost some kind of ego, self-worth wrapped into it that we had to really end the playoff drought. Now kind of get snuck in as an extra team.
Or the NHL, when they expanded and the Sabres still missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a cheap way to
Right.
get in last year when there was 24 teams, and they still didn't get it though. So, but that would have been a cheap way to end the drought. Yeah.
John, do you want to talk wrestling with Jonah? I mean, he's going to the show tonight. I don't know. I don't want to get in the way of your guys if you want to talk wrestling.
Are there any matches? I know there's a good.
Who's on the card?
I know there's a good women's tag team match, right? Bianca or not Bianca, Sasha Banks.
Yeah, I actually don't know. They're advertising something like that, and you know what they do with a lot of these. So it's a television taping for Monday Night Raw, and then when the television show ends, they're going to put on a big match for the fans. That's kind of just to send everybody home happy, but it's not like that match. It doesn't exist in storyline and canon. It's kind of just there to and be an entertainment. So it could be, anything can happen. And I haven't looked up. Sometimes you can go online and see what's going to happen in wrestling before it happens. And I haven't necessarily done that with this show tonight.
Yeah, I'm
The only
looking at.
prediction I can make is that I'm going to spend way too much money on 24-ounce cans of beer that, probably cost $24.
Where on your Ross, put a pin up. It's my birthday. Buy me a beer. See if how many
Yeah,
people
that's
bite
not
it.
a bad idea. Right. Yeah.
But I'm looking at there's Austin Theory versus Finn Balor for the U.S. title.
Oh, there you go.
The women's tag team, that's the one. Sasha Banks and Naomi versus Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. But then, as you said, the TV ones, there's always some interesting swerves. So there's a lie detector test with Kevin Owens and Ezekiel/Elias. This is kind of the reason I may not end up going.
Is that known as a Maury Povich match?
It's the lie detector.
The lie detector match, or
it still sounds better than this. There is a Dana Brooke and Reggie and Tamina and someone I don't know, Tozawa, to be joined together by R-Truth in a double commitment ceremony.
That's happening tonight?
That's tonight. So that's a good half hour that you could stand in the beer line probably.
You know what I hope doesn't happen? So I went to a Monday Night Raw years and years ago when I was in high school, 20-something years ago. And they did some fakakta thing where Vince McMahon got arrested and they did all these backstage filming segments. But you're sitting in the arena watching that on the screen on TV while they do all of that in the back. Like, you want the action to happen in the ring out in front of you. That's why you bought a ticket.
Yeah, true story. Yeah.
How do you spell fakakta?
Starts with an F.
Any idea?
Tim Graham and fakakta. I could take a stab at it, but like Hanukkah and a lot of these Yiddish words, there's multiple spellings.
What is
Fakachta? That's how I do it.
What is the best wrestling show you've seen live, or the best thing you've seen in wrestling live? Either of you.
There was a show. I can't remember. I think it was Armageddon. It might have been the aforementioned Kevin Snow. He and I used to go to a lot of wrestling matches in addition to our Dyngus Day activities. It was a pay-per-view in Buffalo. I think it was Armageddon. It might have been I don't think it was Backlash. I think it was called Armageddon. And we left there saying that might have been the best thing we spent money on, because you think Sabres games at the time, this was when the Sabres were still filling the house and there was a lot of excitement. We were thinking, and you look down, Sabres fans stand up and cheer 4-5 times at most. We were up and down 10 times at least, because there was moments that night where you're like, holy cow, and you just get up and just got pulled out of your seat because it was such a fun event. So that's the first one that comes to mind. That was a good night.
Then who's on that card? Like, what are some of the names?
I'll look it up while Jonah's chatting.
Okay.
How
about you, Jonah?
Well, so I haven't been to many events. Like, I went to a few when I was younger as a kid in high school. Nostalgically, I remember going to an old event at the Niagara Falls Convention Center, and that was pretty cool because you were closer to the ring.
Didn't you just go to a show in Rochester, though?
Well, yeah. So I went to a show in Rochester, and I'm going tonight because my brother's gotten into wrestling quite a bit, and so it's kind of something we've done a little bit lately. And the show in Rochester, that was going to be my answer, because it was an AEW show in Rochester. It was pretty good. It was pretty entertaining. I wasn't quite into the in-ring action quite as much as some of the other people there, or understand everything that was going on. But it was a tribute show for Luke Harper, Brody Lee, who was John Huberman is his real name, who was from Rochester and had died about a year earlier. And this was their first time coming to Rochester with his family and his son. And the stuff that happened after the show and the tribute aspect of it with Cody Rhodes and things like that. It was a real touching, that felt a bit like an event. It was the first time AEW had ever had a show in Rochester, and they did that tribute, and it was pretty much everybody there was from Buffalo or Rochester and knew what was going on. So that was kind of cool to be in the building for.
Where do these people hang out when they're in town? Because you can't hide as a
So,
professional wrestler.
One thing I do know is like a lot of them go to the gym. So if you know, like Muscleheads or whatever, they'll either have a story about a wrestler coming in and working out in there, or people are kind of trying to guess what gym. Like I'm going to a CrossFit gym before the game downtown at the Seneca Tower, and I hope Seth Rollins or one of these guys pops in for a workout. That would be kind of neat.
Who was on your card, John?
I found the card. There was 8 matches. I'll just go in the order they list them here. There was a tag team match with The Miz and Morrison versus a couple guys named Jesse and Festus. I remember Festus. I don't remember Jesse. So it started a little slow. There was a big Russian guy in the next match. Vladimir Kozlov beat Matt Hardy. And then it picked up after this. CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio. Mark Henry with Tony Mr. USA Atlas against Finlay. Randy Orton versus Batista with Cody Rhodes in the Randy Orton's corner.
Jeez.
There was a 8 Diva Santa's Little Helper tag team match because it was around Christmas time. Yeah, this was in 2008. So this was right after the Sabres had those 2 great seasons. But it was Michelle McCool, Maria, Kelly, and Mickey James defeated Maurice, Jillian Hall, Victoria, and Natalia. And then you got John Cena defeating Chris Jericho by submission.
Gee, and then, I know these people. That means those are big names.
And then there's a triple threat for the WWE Championship, which was Jeff Hardy beating Edge and Triple H. So, I mean, at the time, these are the names. There's a bunch of Hall of Famers on that list. So, yeah, looking back, that was just a great night of fun.
You guys should, Vogl, you should get 2 tickets and bring Tim along and introduce him to
I would go. I have no problem.
I have
no problem going with it. I'm not huge into it, but I appreciate it. I understand the allure.
They had a house show right after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's, and we took our nephews for the first time. They're 6 and 8, and they come over and use our son's old wrestling guys when they come over, and they had a good time. I mean, house shows, there's only a few thousand there, but it was fun. I mean, they made it fun, and like Jonah said, some of the best moments tonight will come after Raw goes off the air because there'll be a good match to 11, and they play to the crowd a little more for that one. So,
and one thing I'd say to Tim or somebody who is a bit of a casual fan and maybe hasn't been paying close attention the last few years is how incredible women's wrestling and the performances with some of the women's stars has gotten over the last 3, 4, 5 years. They're really, in some ways, the biggest stars in the company, and the best matches at WrestleMania or whatnot will be a women's match. Maybe not more often than not, but it's as likely that the women's performance is going to be better than the men's as it is the other way around.
Why don't you tell John about the women's wrestling we saw at Libation Station last night?
Well, I ran into an old friend from high school, and she had a friend there, and they were getting a little handsy, and I think it came out to a draw.
I think there was a strong element of needing to hold each other up. Was
right? It was like
lest anyone think that this was purely erotic. I think it was. I think it was for balance mostly.
We should have our friend Greg the AD on because he's a former wrestling coach, and he could.
That's right.
Break down all the different techniques. He was watching closely. I think
he was there. John, anything else you want to talk about?
No, that was good. Yeah.
Be safe out there on Dyngus Day.
I will.
And hopefully you get a lot of comments about your UNLV sweatshirt. Hopefully the name Dave Rice is mentioned to you today. Remember Dave Rice?
Is he a player?
Yeah.
I thought I remembered everyone. I don't remember Dave Rice.
He was a walk-on. He was there to raise the GPA, but ended up being UNLV's head coach eventually.
Okay. Well, now I feel bad. I ended the show with not knowing somebody from my favorite team.
Well, hang on. I'll look it up. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to look up the UNLV team. I moved to Las Vegas in 95, and it was still like the hangover of Tarkanian and Raleigh Massimino. Well, Raleigh Massimino just robbed the school blind because they were obviously a big time program, national championship, almost undefeated. And then what are we talking here, John? 1990?
90, yeah.
91?
The 90-91 team was the one that lost to Duke. And then
So the 89-90 team is what we're looking at. Okay. So yeah, they were still, it was Bill Bano was the head coach, and guys were, there was still this belief that we deserve to compete. And it was the beginning of the downfall of UNLV, realizing, okay, we're just not that special of a school. We're not going to be North Carolina of the West, or we're not going to be another UCLA. Yeah. Dave Rice,
Right.
he was, came off the bench, and he was a freshman. I'll cut you some slack. He played in only 16 games. He averaged 1.1 points a game, but I'm glad I got one on you.
Yes. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. I thought throwing Travis Bice and H. Waldman out would get me some cred, but I don't know that guy.
H. Waldman wasn't on that team. How about that? Maybe he came a year later.
He must have been on the 90. I got the 90-91 team up. Yeah, he was definitely on there.
H.
He averaged 2.1 points per game.
Yeah, he was a big shot recruit. Ended up transferring to St. Louis. I don't know if that would have been Rick Majerus. No, that was pre Rick Majerus. Rick Majerus was at Utah then. Anyways, we're good. We've totally derailed. John, enjoy Dyngus Day. Jonah, enjoy your 40th birthday and the wrestling. And before we let the audience go, let me just remind everybody, as I'm prone to do towards the end of the podcast, to check out Amherst Pizza and Ale House at 55 Cross Point Parkway in Gettsville. That's right off of Millersport Highway in the 990. All the college and pro action you want, the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, baseball starting up, and you can bet on all these games. So you want a place that has a ton of TVs, just as Amherst Pizza and Ale House does, on the patio outside also. Recognized by ESPN.com as Western New York's top spot to watch sports. A lot of energy there, as I always like to say. Stop in or call for takeout and delivery, 716-625-7100. One more time, 716-625-7100. Amherst Pizza and Ale House. Drop an H. Waldman question in there for, as a, bet somebody for drinks. They can remember H. Waldman's real first name. The answer being H. John Vogl, thank you for doing this. Jonah Bronstein, happy birthday. And thank you for everyone out there for listening and watching. Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and Business Consultants.
The financial needs of a business go beyond tax and attest services. That's why CTBK goes beyond accounting services and offers outsourced solutions through their affiliation with CFO Solutions Plus. These additional services allow clients to focus on their operational and long-term strategic goals. Trust CTBK's outsourced solutions to provide cost-effective, value-added financial services tailored to your company's needs. Call CTBK at 716-630-2400. Again, 716-630-2400. Or go to ctbk.com to learn more about CTBK's outsourced solutions.